Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 6th October 2025. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your examination. In the initial two articles, we have included two mains practice questions which will be highly useful for your upcoming mains examination. So in our first topic, we will explore ADR, that is Alternative Dispute Resolution, as a faster, efficient and cost-effective way to resolve disputes outside courts. Then in our second topic, we will look at the status of India's energy security as well as other related dimensions. Then in our simplified section, we'll take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very crucial for your upcoming prelims and mains examinations. So have a look on them also and stay tuned. So let's start with the first topic, that is alternative dispute resolution. The context of this topic is that in today's The Hindu newspaper, a write-up has appeared which is focusing on various aspects of ADR. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, ADR, Judiciary and Indian Constitution. ADR can be defined as the process that is used to settle legal disputes outside the traditional courtroom. Apart from serving various other benefits, ADR can help us in addressing the issue of judicial pendency. For example, as per National Judicial Data Grid, there are more than 5 crore cases which are pending across different courts in India. For example, in District Court of India itself, there are around 4 crore 69 lakh 76,232 cases which are pending. Similarly, in High Courts of India, around 63 lakh 71,132 cases are pending. In Supreme Court, around 89,255 cases are pending. Along with that, there are more than 23% of cases which are pending in the high courts which are more than 10 years old. Now the problem is that, let's suppose there is a company who invested in India, but because of certain disputes related to contract enforcement, it filed one petition or it filed a suit in one of the courts. But the decision on that particular case or the order on that particular case couldn't come in due time, and that is the reason this particular company is in the legal battle or in the litigation. Plus, the problem is that the profit of this company, the investment of this company is also jeopardized. Now let's suppose there is a company which is planning to invest in India. Because of this case, as an example, whenever they will be looking up to, they might not be interested to invest in India, because tomorrow the company which is going to invest in India, they might be also subjected to any of the litigations. And if this much of time they will have to invest to get the settlement on this particular dispute, their again investment and profit will be jeopardized, which obviously they do not want. So that is the reason ADR, which is the outside settlement happening between the parties, where the flexibility is there, they can be one of the solutions for the pendency of the cases, especially the cases related to the family matters, civil disputes, etc., can be addressed in a time-bound manner. Before looking into the history of ADR, first let's try to discuss the different types of ADR mechanism. So first is the negotiation. So let's suppose there are two aspirants who are preparing for this UPSC examination. The person A is a person who tries to study and mainly studies in the night itself. Whereas there is this person B who is going to the library in the morning and coming in the evening. And this person wants to take a sleep from 10 PM to at least 6 or 7 AM. Now this is one of the major point of contention between these two aspirants, that when B tries to sleep, A is studying, and obviously the B is consistently insisting on switching off the light. And that is the reason they have a dispute with regard to the switching off the light, that at what time they should sleep or they should switch off the light. Now one option that they have, that they can file a suit in any of the courts, and then courts can decide at what time the light should be switched off. In that case, obviously they will have to hire an advocate, or they also have to visit the courts at regular time whenever their case is there in the courts. And in that case, they will have to spend some money or the financial resources. They also have to visit the courts where their time will be spent. And prelims is near, obviously they would not like to visit the courts. In that case, the other option that they have, that they can sit on the table and they can say, let's try to find an amicable solution, that I will be switching off the light by maximum 12 in the night itself, and then you can sleep peacefully. And with this particular case that they have decided, with this particular solution that they have came upon, what they will be doing, they will not feel the need to visit the courts, and obviously that will save their financial resources as well as time. So negotiation is the process where the parties are settling disputes themselves through the discussions and deliberations between themselves. There is no involvement of any third party. Here, it is the most basic and widely used method. It is used in business, legal, diplomatic and everyday cases also. The negotiations that me and you or our mothers are doing at the vegetable shop, the negotiations that is happening between India and United States for the trade agreement, the free trade agreement which India and UK signed, the negotiations happened after that, that free trade agreement came into the picture. Then we have the second important ADR, that is the mediation, where a facilitator will help parties communicate and reach agreement. For example, these two persons are not talking to each other, but there is a third aspirant, mutual friend of A and B, C, which is helping these two persons to come on the table and start talking, start discussing, start deliberating, with the help of which they can find a amicable solution which is acceptable by both A and B. So here again the outcome will not be binding unless both will be agreeing. Obviously, if both will be agreeing, then the agreement or the solution that is coming will be binding. And here it is said that there is mediation and conciliation project committee of the Supreme Court, who says that to be qualified as a mediator, a person should have at least 40 hours of training. If he has already done 10 settlements and 20 mediations, then as per this committee, that person can become a qualified mediator. This kind of ADR is more common in the family matters, businesses and the community disputes. For example, if the matter is related to adoption, inheritance, etc., there it can be also used to get a possible solution. Then we have the conciliation, where the third party proposes solutions. Parties may accept or reject. This person will be proposing a solution. Now either A or B can accept this or they can reject this. Here settlement is binding only if the both parties are accepting it. It is not necessary that if C said something, then A and B have to mandatorily follow that. It is up to A and B whether they want to accept that or they want to reject that. But until and unless both will agree, that there will not be any solution that will be coming. Also, it is mainly used in employment, consumer and commercial matter. For example, if an employee is filing or is willing to file a suit under the conciliation for the purpose of getting the social security benefits or the wages or the salaries which is pending, in that case it can be helpful. Also, it is generally less formal than the arbitration. Then next we have the arbitration, in which the neutral tribunal gives a final and binding award. What is happening? Let's suppose there are two companies who may have the subsidiaries in certain other tax jurisdiction, and if there is a litigation between the companies or some other parties, they may go for filing a suit under any of the arbitration tribunal, and they will be giving a final binding award. There will be no appeal that will be lying with regard to the award that will be given by the tribunal, except in the rare cases. For example, if any of the parties is appealing and they are saying that the tribunal was not formed by following the due process, or it is not in sync with India's public policy, in that case appeal might be there. Also, it is less formal than the courts. There are relaxed rules for this particular case. For example, principle of natural justice might be followed instead of code of criminal procedure. Then it is mainly common in the commercial, international and the infrastructure disputes, as already said. Now, what are the advantages of the ADR? First of all, it helps in bringing the confidentiality. For example, disputes are resolved in private, preserving the sensitive information. Let's suppose there is a case with regard to the child custody between a husband and wife. Now, what if they are filing a suit or case in the traditional court? That child might have to visit that particular courtroom. In that case, that child might be also seeing certain other criminals, or whatever the litigations and all the things that will be happening in that particular court, that child will also be seeing all those things. So that might impact the psyche of that child. Instead of that husband and wife, what if they are negotiating certain terms? Okay, let's suppose for 12 hours this child may be with one particular parent, and for next 12 hours it can be with the next parent. So with the delay that might happen with the traditional court, this child might be devoid of the affection, love that is needed in the initial stage, in the initial years of a child itself. But with the ADR mechanisms, the child can get the love and affection of both mother and father. Also, the other issues with regard to the divorces or other family matters, if they are opening up in the traditional courtroom, it is not only the parties, it is not only the judge who is listening. Various other advocates are generally sitting in the court for their cases, or there are other people who are waiting for their cases to be heard, and that is the reason the sensitive information, private information is also coming in the public domain. It is also cost effective. For example, whenever people are filing suits or the cases in the courts, they may have to, obviously they have to pay a fee to the advocates, to the lawyers, and whatever the fee that they will be paying to the mediators will be much less as compared to whatever the fee that they will be paying to the advocates or the lawyers. Apart from that, to see the case or to go for every hearing that the court will have, person might have to take the leaves from the offices, person might have to travel to that court itself. That will also be the person will also have to spend certain amount for that also. So in the mediation or in the other ADR mechanisms, it is much cost effective as compared to traditional courts. Also, it helps in saving the time of the people. For example, it provides for the flexible procedures that helps in reducing the delays compared to court trials. For example, it can allow any witness to appear in front of the tribunal or in front of mediator. For example, it can allow the acceptance of any evidence at that time itself. Whereas in the traditional court, it is generally, it should be informed beforehand if any new evidence is going to come. Also, it is less stressful. The informal setting lowers the emotional and the procedural stress. For example, the ADR process may be in their own language itself, and where the mediator is helping them to come to an amicable solution by providing them information in their local languages, by providing certain information with regard to, by understanding their culture, etc. So the person who might not be good in English, who might not be comfortable in the urban setting, if he is getting some solution according to his needs, then that might help in lowering the stress that he might be subjected to with regard to the litigation in which the person is involved into. Also, it helps in creative and sustainable solutions. The parties can reach customized solution that can provide win-win outcomes for both parties. Then the expert involvement, options to appoint specialized neutral arbitrator, mediators, etc. For example, in normal circumstances also, the Supreme Court or other courts appoint amicus curiae, who are the expert in that particular matter, who will be helping the courts or the judges to give any judgment on that particular matter, if that is related to, let's suppose, any of the contract, companies, environment, or any other thing. But here, experts are already part of that mediation or the arbitrators. So again, it will help in getting a better solution, saving the time also. Also, it helps in bringing greater control, that parties have more influence over the process and the outcomes because they are involved in that process itself. Whereas, in the case of traditional courtroom, what happens that it is the judge who will look up to all the facts, he will look up to all the evidence, he will look up to all the witnesses who are coming, and accordingly he will decide the case either in support or against of any of the parties. So the parties, let's suppose they are thinking that there can be a balanced or the neutral judgment that might come, but it is not, they do not have any control over that outcome, rather it is the judge who will be deciding. So again, it is helping, or it is the time that takes to get the decision that we were talking. So this is the case of average disposal time between India and the Council of Europe. You can see even in the case of whether it is the civil cases or whether it is the criminal cases. In India, it takes a lot of time to get a final decision on any of the suits. Plus, when we see that the parties do not have any control, let's suppose district court or the high court give any judgment, again they will be filing appeal with regard to that particular judgment in the higher courts, and that will further burden the courts. So the main aim for which the ADR came, if that is not the arbitration, in that case, that the main aim was to deburden the judiciary. But when the parties are not accepting the judge order or the award that was given or the solution that was provided, in that case, again it is wasting the time, plus it is again burdening the judiciary. But there are certain other challenges with regard to the ADR. For example, the non-binding agreements, it depends on parties' voluntary compliance. That in the case of the mediation, negotiation and the conciliation, parties might agree today, parties might disagree in future, or party may not agree at all. In that case, again, it will be wasting time and it will further add to the cost of the litigation, time of the litigation. Plus, loose evidence rules. For example, decisions may rely on the incomplete info. For example, in the traditional court setup, what happens that, let's suppose, judge may order any of the investigative agencies, any of the police officers to look up to the facts of the cases, bring some witness into the court itself, where so that they can get the complete information regarding any fact, But that might not be the case in the ADR mechanism. So the solutions that will be coming, that might not be completely true, that might not be looking up to all the facts related to that case. Also, the power imbalance. For example, dominant party may skew results. For example, in the traditional courtrooms, whether it is the Supreme Court, High Courts or the district courts, it doesn't matter at all that who is the party. It is the decisions are taken based on the facts of the matter. And whereas in this particular cases of the ADR, the party which is dominant or which is financially very sound might impact the outcome of that particular case, especially in the case of the arbitration where the tribunals give award. Then we have the complex legal issues. For example, it is unsuitable for the detailed judicial interpretation. For example, if there is a case with regard to the adoption, divorce, or in the cases of the euthanasia or any other case. Now here, the Supreme Court or the other courts may have to interpret the laws that are there in place. Some constitutional provisions like Article 21, right to life and liberty, where the ADR mechanisms might not be comfortable or they might not be equipped with those kind of information where they can interpret the law or the legal precedents that are there. Then outcomes generally don't guide the future cases, no precedent. For example, if the Keshwanand Bharti judgment of 1973 came, where the basic structure doctrine was given by the Supreme Court. It is setting a precedent, or it is acting as a precedent for future judgment also, that whenever an amendment is being done by the parliament, it should not infringe the basic structure of the constitution. Then we have the limited appeals power. For example, arbitration decisions are mostly final and it might not be suitable for any of the parties, but with the limited information or with the limited chances that are given for the appeal, it might impact certain parties. Plus the rising cost. For example, skilled neutrals can be expensive. For example, to be qualified as the mediator as per the Supreme Court committees, they must go for this much of training, settlements and mediations. And if the person is becoming qualified mediator, he may be taking some charges. With the rising litigations that is happening, there may be a greater cost that mediators will also start taking. Also the cross-border enforcement, that it mainly depends on the international treaties. For example, if two of the countries have certain treaty, in the case of Kairan energy dispute, where the retrospective taxation dispute was there between Indian government and Kairan Energy. So they were saying that India, UK have one of the treaty where the retrospective taxation should not be there. Or Devas Antrix was the case. Antrix was the commercial arm of ISRO. So there was again a dispute with regard to the contract enforcement. Or the AGR issue, that is adjusted gross revenue of the telecom companies, Vodafone, etc. So all these disputes, they might not be enforceable in the foreign tax jurisdiction if the countries do not have a proper treaty. So what is the path ahead? So the Niti Aayog, which came with a report with the name of 3-year action agenda on ADR, and that 3-year action agenda was from 2017-18 to 2019-20, and this Niti Aayog was established on 1st January 2015. And it completed its 10 years on 2025 1st January. That is the reason this is one of the topic which is very important for your next prelims and mains examination. So this report or the agenda which was regarding ADR, it said that there can be a judicial performance index. And this is the reason that India Justice Report also came, that to some extent followed the 3-year action agenda report of the Niti Aayog. This index will help in tracking and improving district and subordinate court performance. It will also help in aiding the High Court and the Chief Justice in reducing delays. Also, there can be a separate administrative cadre. For example, All India Judicial Services, which can be created under Article 312 of the Constitution. It will help in judiciary specific administration reporting to Chief Justice to ensure judicial independence and efficient management. Plus, these people will be more equipped to deal with the legal cases, whether it is civil or the criminal. Plus, there is need for boosting ICT use. For example, the e-courts project which came, or the SUPACE or the SUVAS, all these are the schemes that are there to help in addressing the cases of the judicial pendency. Plus, it is going to help us in boosting the use of information and the communication technology. For example, we can prioritize the court automation, electronic case and schedule management, and migrate all courts to unified national court software. For example, the schedule of the cases generally comes that at this particular day, at this particular time, at this particular number, this case will be heard by this court. But in majority of the cases, the bench find it very difficult to hear all the cases that are listed for that particular day. Why? Because any of the advocate might not be there, any of the witness who was called there might not be there, or there can be some delay with regard to certain other issues that might come in that particular day. But what if we develop a proper portal where just after the scheduling of the cases, it is giving a proper message, text message as well as email to all the parties involved, all the advocates or the lawyers involved, all the witnesses who are going to be called, all the police officers or the investigative officers who might have to be present on that particular day. And if they are not coming, there may be some punitive actions that might be taken, or the contempt of court might be enforced against them. So when with this particular portal itself, what we are doing court automation. We are also helping, we are also going for proper schedule management. Also, streamlining judicial appointments, use real-time online judicial statistics to assess manpower and infrastructure needs accurately, shift workload from the regular courts, implement Commercial Courts Act 2015 in major cities, set up separate traffic courts and amend fine payments process to reduce congestions. Plus, there is need for increasing awareness about the ADR processes. There has been various reports which said that ADR processes are not properly known by the people, and that is the reason they majorly go for the traditional setups. Now, why is again this ADR crucial? This was said by our former Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chanchud ji, who said that mediation is a tool for the social change, where social norms are brought in line with the constitutional values through the exchange of views and flow of information. Solutions arrived at through valuable discussions during mediation ensures true justice for individuals and groups on their terms. Because it is not the justice that is important, time-bound justice is also important. Plus, it will also help in providing a platform that protects the sentiments of the people or the parties that are involved. A mains practice question from this particular topic that you people can write. Next topic is an Energy Atmanirbharta Act. The context of this topic is that in today's Indian Express newspaper, an editorial has appeared that is focusing on need for energy security, and that will also help us in ensuring the national security of India. And this particular topic is related to your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, as well as syllabus of your GS paper 3, conservation, environmental pollution and degradation. So you would be aware of the fact that India is dependent on crude oil imports for more than 85% of its crude oil needs. And when Russia-Ukraine war started, the Russian crude oil which was available at cheap prices, India also started buying that Russian crude oil. But it was alleged by the European countries as well as United States that India is also helping Russia in Russian-Ukraine war with the help of oil that it is buying from Russia. And that is one of the reason that when United States announced tariffs on India, 25% tariff plus 25 additional tariff, because we are trading with Russia, we are buying Russian crude oil. Now, it created certain ramifications. It had certain ramifications. For example, the competitiveness of our products will decrease, and that may have the impact on our economic growth also. Plus, the closeness that was witnessed in last few weeks between the Pakistan and the United States, between the Saudi Arabia and the Pakistan, that might also have certain geopolitical complications with regard to the national security of the India, with regard to the border management challenges that might arise in future. That is the reason if we will be self-sufficient in our energy needs, our national security also will be intact. And the writer is saying that when we are talking about the Viksit Bharat or the developed country, In the case of the energy security, again, it is not necessary that only the availability of the energy resources are there. It is how equitable it is. Only the few people who are having the resources related to energy, or it is available at affordable prices with the whole India, with all the sections of society or not. And then when we talk about the Atmanirbhar, it is not only the self-sufficiency that is needed, it is the self-reliance that is needed. That we are also able to achieve our Panchamitra goal by shifting to the renewable, but we are also not dependent on the foreign markets for the energy needs, because if we are, tomorrow again arm twisting will be done either in one form or other form. With the self-sufficiency, we might not be subjected to this arm twisting, or we might not be in a vulnerable positions. Our position will be much better. If we talk about the current statistics related to India's power capacity, this is the updated data of 31st August 2025. The source-wise electricity installed capacity is 496 gigawatt, out of which 45.09% belongs to coal. Then we have the wind, which is 10.63%. Along with that, hydro 10.11%. Along with that, after the coal, we have the solar, who we have the 24.85%. So after coal, we have the solar 24.85. Then we have the wind 10.63%, hydro 10.11%. Then we have the oil and gas 4.18%, biopower 2.34%, and nuclear 1.77%. There may be a question that might be asked with regard to the decreasing order of India's electricity installed capacity. When we talk about the India's power generation, again, the installed capacity was also of the solar, of the wind, but majority of the power generation is happening from the coal sector itself. That is 67.50% belongs to the coal sector itself. Now, if you look into this India's energy statistics of India 2025 report, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, it also said that coal in the share of total energy production increased from 77% in financial year 23 to 79% in financial year 24. Now the problem is that we also have our NDC's, nationally determined contribution, where we have to reduce our carbon intensity. We also have to reduce our global greenhouse gas emissions. But if we are not shifting to the renewable sources, we might not achieve, we might not fulfill that idea also. And that is the reason the current complications that we have with regard to the energy scenario, it is creating various challenges. For example, with regard to the energy security of India, one of the major challenges that, as said by the editor also, that there is no unified ministry. We have the different ministry and different minister for coal, petroleum and natural gas, renewables as well as nuclear. And that is the reason there is no inter-ministerial coordination. The policies are being made in silos itself. And there are ambiguity in goals also. For example, the Viksit Bharat, it must include the social plus environmental outcomes. For example, coal ministry, whenever they are planning, they are making their policies, are they also keeping into account the social ramifications that the coal mining have, the impact that it have on the local ecology, the impact that it have on the respiratory diseases or the local populations that the respiratory diseases that might emerge in future with regard to the local population who are subjected to the coal dust, or the environmental outcomes, the pollution that happens in the rivers or the deforestation that happens. Is the coal ministry also taking in account these outcomes? Because renewable energies obviously will be looking up to these factors also. Then the Atmanirbharta, we should not be confused between self-sufficiency. Rather, it is the self-reliance which should be the goal. That we are completely independent of the foreign imports. That whatever the resources we have, they are sufficient. For example, India have the 5th largest coal reserves. But still we are importing coal. We are still importing crude oil. We still launch the National Hydrogen Mission. We launch the other missions related to certain other sectors like biofuels, etc. But still we could not achieve majority of them. So that is the reason, the major challenge is that we are neither self-sufficient as of now, and that is the reason we are also not becoming self-reliant. Plus the 85% of our crude oil needs are imported itself. This was around 30% in 1970s. Why this is happening? Because with more developments that is happening, with more disposable income in the people's hand, obviously there is sales of the cars increased, more private vehicles on the roads, and that will lead to more increase in the demands of the fossil fuels, whether it is petrol, diesel or other. So in that case, we saw an increase in the demand of the fossil fuels, especially the crude oils, and that is the reason, because we were not self-sufficient in crude oil, our import dependency also further increased. And this is one of the reasons that we have a huge trade deficit also. And it is also one of the reasons that our forex reserves time and again has came to the vulnerable situations. Also, that domestic production is struggling is despite the 26 sedimentary basins. Why? Because first of all, there are issues with regard to the capital, there are issues with regard to the technology, there are issues with regard to the skills, that we do not have such skill sets, engineers who can help us in mining these minerals which are there in the sedimentary basins or the oil that is there in the basins in an cost effective manner. Then the coal abundance, dependence versus clean energy goals. That one of the major issue with the renewable sector is that the grid, the electricity grid that we have as of now, integrating the renewable energy grid or the renewable electricity grid with the traditional grid is one of the major challenge, because that requires shifting to the technology, that also requires certain other equipments, etc. That is capital intensive. So if we will completely shift, obviously that cost might be passed on to the consumers, who might find it difficult to afford that high cost that at which the electricity is now being provided to them. That is the reason government is also ensuring that the electricity is available at the affordable cost. But they also have these clean energy goals, the Panchamitra goals that we have targeted. For example, India will bring non-fossil fuel energy capacity to 500 gigawatt by 2030. India will fulfill 50% of its energy requirements through renewable energy by 2030. India will cut down its projected carbon emission by 1 billion ton from now until 2030. India will bring down the carbon intensity of its economy by more than 45% by 2030. Plus, India will achieve the target of net zero by 2070. If there will be consistent dependence on the coal, it will be very difficult for us to achieve these goals. So we need to balance the energy security, affordability, as well as the clean energy goals. There are other challenges, for example, climate risk, which are very high. With 1.5 degrees Celsius warming breached in 2024, India cannot afford to develop now clean later model. That we can first focus on making our economy $5 trillion economy, or consistent growth can be the focus area as of now, and then we can think of shifting to the cleaner goals. These both things should go hand in hand. Plus, the global hypocrisy in the energy trade. For example, US is buying the crude oil from Venezuela despite sanctions, as well as it is sanctioning India for buying Russian oil. The European Union is also importing Russia's LNG. There are certain countries which are also taking oil from there, but they are also enforcing carbon border tax CBAM on India as well as other countries. They are importing this tax on the sectors like steel and certain other sectors which are carbon intensive, that the countries who are importing products to EU, if the carbon footprint is high, they might have to be subjected with an extra tax because of high carbon footprint that those products have. Plus, the China dominates the critical mineral processing. Whether the critical minerals which are being sourced from the Congo, Chile, Peru, Australia, mostly it is being refined in the China itself. Why? Because of the advanced technologies that they have, because of the better skill sets that they have. Now again, it is creating a problem that India will have to bring that capital as well as skill, so that we can at least get some of these investment in the form of the critical mineral processing, because this is not only about the energy security, this is about the security of certain other sectors also, be it the chip manufacturing, automobile sector, etc., where these critical minerals are used. Also, again, if you look into this data, when we were talking about this 85% crude oil dependence, India was having around $24.3 billion deficit despite a strong export flow, and majority of the import bill was related to the crude oil itself, and this is related to June 2025 itself. And this is again the data of the 24-25 between April to February. Again, you see that 85% around was the need from 29-20 to 21-22, but it is to some extent increasing with the time, and now it has gone to 88.2%. That India's dependence on the oil imports are increasing, and this is the data of the supply country by value share of crude oil imports. In Russia was one of the highest supplier of the crude oil few months back, but now again India is diversifying the sources. For example, India started buying certain oil from African countries like Nigeria, so that the sanctions and the eyebrows that it is bringing, that to some extent can be subsidized. Now there are certain government interventions which government is taking so that we can bring self-sufficiency as well as we can have self-reliance in the energy security. For example, recent measures with regard to the diversification that we have done in the crude oil import, plus with regard to the renewable sector, the 5 pledges that we have already seen, the Panchamitra goal, India's instance with regard to the development and launching of the International Solar Alliance, which is a intergovernmental organization to promote solar energy among the member countries, and its headquarters is in Gurgaon itself. And the concept is that to bring all the countries that lie either completely or partially between the two tropics so as to harness solar energy and make the technology freely available to all nations. And $83 billion needed for India's requirement to meet its 175 gigawatt goal, and ISA can be very important in that. Plus One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative, where the Honorable Prime Minister said that I firmly believe that this project can bring transformational benefits for the entire humanity. Then other push for the clean energy. For example, the manufacturing of the green hydrogen, which is created or manufactured with the help of electrolysis process, and the electricity that is supplied for that electrolysis process is sourced from the green energy, whether it is solar, etc. Then we have the ethanol blending program, where we have already achieved the 20% blending. Then National Solar Mission, which was launched, and government sets target of 1 lakh megawatt grid connected solar power by December 22 itself. The Mission Life, which was launched, which was a one word movement at the COP26 summit, and it was focusing on bringing behavioral changes, small changes, like instead of using lift, use the stairs. And it is a mass movement for environmental conscious lifestyle. Then the FAME in India schemes, that is faster adoption and manufacturing of electrical vehicles. It is under the Ministry of Heavy Industries. Here the charging stations were being established, the subsidies were being provided for the EV vehicles. But what should be done to ensure that we are having our energy security as well as national security intact? First of all, define the energy vision, that with regard to the Viksit or developed, it is not only the availability of the resources, but inclusivity is important, that all the sections of the society are getting the benefits. For example, Ujjwala Yojana that was launched by the government to ensure the LPG connections are reaching to even the households who do not have connections. Plus, the focus should be on green growth. It is not the availability of the energy or the electricity that is needed, but slowly and gradually we should shift towards the green energy sources. Atmanirbharta, or the self-sufficiency, it is not only the self-sufficiency that is needed, but self-reliance that is needed. That slowly and gradually we move from our over dependence towards the imports being self-reliant. Also, intact an Energy Atmanirbhar Act to legislate energy goals, that if there will be an act that will be passed, a bill that will be passed by the parliament, and after getting assent from the president, when it will be in the form of act or law, it will give clear guidelines that what are the goals we have to achieve, in what time we have to achieve, and what are the mechanisms through which we can achieve that goal. Plus, we can build strategic reserves of lithium, cobalt, copper, rare earths like petroleum reserves. For example, we have the strategic petroleum reserves in Padur, Karnataka, Mangalore, and certain other places like Visakhapatnam. Also, acquire and manage global energy assets, that also supports India's bid, and also build expert teams, that we can develop that technology, that we can also attract investment, not only about the renewable sector but also about the processing of the critical energy minerals, etc. Also, scale up public research and development in clean energy with the help of the PPP model, that it is not only the government that is focusing, academia with better industry academia linkages, where the universities or the colleges are providing that education which is helping in building more robust industries. Also, simplify the regulations, for example, ease access to the land, capital and water. For example, in the case of pharma sector, bulk drug parks are established, where the common facility centers are established for example, solvent recovery facilities there. So here the companies will have less need that they will be spending in the initial phase of their business. Or if the land will already be available to the companies at subsidized rate, obviously that will also help in reduced cost of capital. Also ensure contract sanctity with again promotion of ADR mechanisms or regular enforcement in a time bound manner. Also upskill workforce for the renewables. For example, solar engineers can be developed, plus the specific course can come with regard to the emerging sector that are there. All these measures will also help us in achieving our sustainable development goal 7 by 2030, that is not focusing only on the energy security but also sustainable energy consumption. This is a mains practice question that you people can write. Next topic is the disaster in Darjeeling. This is related to your GS paper 1, important geophysical phenomena, and this has appeared in today's The Indian Express page number 12. So Darjeeling, which is in West Bengal, and it is at one of the strategic location near Chicken Neck as well as near the Sikkim. Now there has been certain cases earlier also with regard to the landslide, incessant rainfall, which led to death of several persons, and recently also there was a landslide that occurred and that led to death of around 23%. And this is not the first time that when such kind of incident is happening. It has happened in past also. But the major issue is that the urban governance structure, whether it is the municipal corporations or the municipalities, or whether it is the government, they are not taking learnings from each incident that is happening. They are not focusing on developing the disaster resilient infrastructure. They are not focusing on de-burdening the urban infrastructure. They are not focusing on taking time-bound actions on the areas where the actions are needed. So it is also called as the Queen of Hills, and it has been battering with the heavy rain which took several human lives and caused massive destruction. And as of now, the rain which started on the night of the October 3 exceeded the exceptionally heavy rainfall, and that is the reason it led to landslide, and the warning for this rainfall issued just 12 hours before. That is one of the reasons that since it becomes very difficult to predict the weather phenomena, to predict the rainfall, because there are a lot of factors which impact the rainfall patterns or which impact the weather. And when the information or the warning is coming just before 12 hours, it becomes very difficult for people to move to safer locations, to take those measures which can reduce the risk to the loss of lives. Also, the concentrated downpour of 6 hours destroyed the Dudhiya bridge over Balasan river, which links Siliguri to tourist town Mirik, and it also disrupted all the national and the state highways. Also, this area has an history of earlier landslide also, be it in 1899, 1934, 1950, or recently in 2015 also. And there are certain reasons. Okay, what are those reasons? First of all, it is because of the influx from the plains and the neighboring countries. The urban infrastructure and the main city which is burdened with the migration that it faced, and land and property buying spree recorded metamorphic changes in the last 3 decades. Now when our infrastructure is getting built, whether it is for the housing of the people or for building other infrastructure related to commercial establishment, there are certain cases where it is being built by flouting certain norms. For example, it is in the areas of the wetlands, or it is near the river channels. And now when this infrastructure is blocking the passage of the water, obviously it will create a situation where the landslide might occur. Plus it will also there are the impact of climate change also, which is now distinctly visible in the changing rainfall pattern, that either there will be cases of no rainfall, or within few hours itself there will be lot of rainfall that will happen. Apart from that, the rivers and the jhoras, which are also called as streams, have shown unprecedented course changes within that time itself, and thereby generating new paths of hydrological flows and intrusions into human habitations and the livelihoods. It is not only the rainfall that is leading to loss of life. It is not only the landslide that is leading to loss of lives of the people, but incessant rainfall in the human habitation, landslide in the region where people are residing is leading to loss of life. And when there is lot of influx of migrants, when there is lot of infrastructure building, plus the climate pattern is changing, Plus, the river is also changing its course. Also, it is coming probably near to the human habitation. The risk of loss of life is further increasing. Also, heavy, unsuitable and unsustainable development projects like hydropower, railways, hotel and other installation have been a massive onslaught on the limited carrying capacity of these hills. Now, problem is that when the infrastructure is getting built and there is no proper environment impact assessment, the local population is not being consulted properly, plus the impact that it create on the geography of that particular area, ecology of that area. For example, the forest that is there or the trees that is there, that helps in reducing the speed of the rain. But when there is deforestation that is happening in the name of infrastructure building, it also increases the speed of the water, and that also creates the risk of the loss of life of the human habitation. And the flooding of the river beds, streams like Jora sidelines and other natural corridors with unplanned and unauthorized settlements have triggered arterial clogging. As in the case of heart attacks that happens in human, whenever any of the person's artery is clogged or the blocked, it leads to the case of the heart attack. Similarly, when the areas or the river beds are occupied by the human habitation, by the infrastructure, river will make its own course, and when they are going to make its own course, they will take all the human habitation that was unauthorized. Also, as per the landslide atlas of India 2023 that was published by ISRO, Darjeeling was ranked 35th as the most exposed area among the 147 districts. And there are several local NGOs including Save Hill by Colonel Praful Rao of Kalimpong. They have been highlighting these threats on social media and also through substantive debates and awareness campaigns. Similarly, the glacial lake outburst flood in Sikkim in October 23 triggered by the Lonak Lake Bridge was also emphatically warned about in the Sikkim Human Development Report of 2001, that there are certain glacial lake which are flooding, and in future there may be break in the embankments and then it can create loss of life. Also, the glacial lake outburst flow not only claimed human lives, it swept away around 1200 megawatt one of the hydropower projects. So it is not loss of life that is happening, but plus the property is also getting lost. But the need is the actions that are needed. Seriously lacking is the required urgency in the central and state governments in both forewarning the hill communities and also in the managing aftermath of the damages. Both adaptation and mitigation measures are needed. For example, 2 villages of Odisha were recognized by the UNESCO and they were awarded for developing climate resilient disaster infrastructure. That disaster resilient infrastructure in the Odisha, because Odisha is one of the states which is battling with lot of tropical cyclones probably every year, but they focused on mitigation and adaptation measures, and that is the reason you will hardly hear that there was a person who lost their life because of the cyclone itself. So there is need for a proper infrastructure building, proper mitigation adaptation measures, proper information dissemination measures. Plus also, the municipalities and the panchayats have neither the knowledge and the skills to handle such disasters, nor they have the funds, techniques and technology and manpower to effectively deal with the dangerous trends. Also, municipalities in the hills set up in 1860s once remained an example of sound governance to other towns and cities in India. Today, they do not even have the simple solid waste management unit. This itself has become a major disaster causing factor. Why? Because if the solid waste or the plastics etc. is clogging the sewers, which is because of which it is difficult for the rainwater to go outside, again it will lead to flooding cases. It might endanger the life of the people. So the need of hour is that we need to equip these municipalities with proper fund function and functionaries, as well as the issue of functionality needs to be addressed. That only by giving the funds the issue will not be resolved. We will have to ensure that there is proper oversight mechanism with the help of which we are ensuring that these municipalities are also working properly for the welfare. Also, Darjeeling is one of the important location strategically as well as economically, because certain products from Darjeeling, for example, the tea, the anti-malarial drugs that like Conan that they are producing, or the tourism potential that it is helping in getting a proper money in the form of exports that we are doing of these products in account of the tourism potential that this location have. Plus, it is also have a geopolitical significance, sensitive location on account of its location at Chicken's Neck, and the political development status has now to be determined exclusively from the national security perspective. That if these kind of cases of the glacial lake outburst flow will happen, or the landslide that will happen tomorrow, this might be utilized by the anti-social elements or by the enemies of the India against the interest of India itself. Now, what exactly is the landslide? It is the rapid downslope movement of rock, soil or debris that is driven by the gravity, often triggered by rain, quakes and snowmelt and human activity. For example, if this is a mountain or hill, now whenever there will be too much of rainfall and lot of water will come at the top of the hill, and when it will be coming outside, it may also aid the movement of rock or soil. That is the case of landslide. Types of landslide are rock slide, which is the bedrock masses sliding down; debris slide, that is loose mix of soil, rock and organic matter; soil slide, that is wet loose soil with the possible vegetation; mud slide, that is flow of soft or loose mud. Also, by movement it can be categorized into fall, topple and slide. Fall is the free fall from the steep slopes. Topple is the forward rotation and fall of blocks. Slide is the mass moves along with the slip surface, that is rotational, curved slip surface, or the transnational, that is flat slip surfaces. By flow it can be categorized into debris flow, earth flow, mud flow and creep. Debris flow is fast fluid mix of water, soil and rock. Earth flow is slow thick flow of saturated fine soil. Mud flow is rapid watery mud movement, and creep is very slow soil or rock shift. Next topic is what is Supreme Court order on local polls in Maharashtra, and this is related to your GS paper 2 local self-governance, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 8. So the Supreme Court recently directed the Maharashtra State Election Commission to conduct elections of all local bodies by January 31, 26. These state election commissions are given under the article 243K read with 243ZA, and they have been given the power of direction, superintendence and control with regard to the elections of panchayats and urban local bodies. So there has been delay with regard to the elections in the Maharashtra because there was pendency of the OBC reservation issue, but there has been also certain judicial delays, the litigations that the particular issue involved of the OBC reservation, and there has been to some extent lack of political will to conduct the election in time-bound manner. Today in Maharashtra, whether it is the municipal corporation, municipal councils or the Nagar Panchayat, Jila Parishad or the Panchayat Samitis, they are mainly being run by the administrators. The BMC, which has an annual budget of over 74,000 crore, it is also functioning without corporators since March 2022 because elections could not happen. Also, now it is being mainly headed by the IS officers or the bureaucrats only. Now, what is the issue around the OBC reservation? So, in 2010, Supreme Court left it to the states to carry out a rigorous investigation to decide which communities are politically backward and should benefit from OBC reservation in local bodies. In March 2021, the Apex Court laid down threefold test that should provide these reservation. So what was this threefold test? In Vikas Kishan Rao Gavli case, this was the case in which the Supreme Court gave the threefold test. First was that states should set up a dedicated commission to conduct the rigorous empirical inquiry into the nature and implication of backwardness in the local bodies within the state itself. Also specifying the proportion of the reservation that is required, plus the whatever the reservation that will be provided, that should not exceed the aggregate of 50% of total seats that are reserved in favor of SC, ST and OBC taken together. Now what happened? That the government set up this Banathia commission and it also submitted its report in July 2022, but it is currently under the challenge before the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, the court ordered that states should carry out the election without the OBC quota if they fail to fulfill the criteria. Thus, the commission conducted elections in 106 municipalities after relocating the OBC quota seats to the general category. On May 6 this year, the Apex Court directed State Election Commission to conduct elections with OBC reservation as existed prior to 2022 Banthia Commission report. It reminded the Commission how local body elections are necessary for keeping the democracy alive at the grassroots. While the court's sentiment for conducting election is commendable, it does not absolve the court from the delay it caused. The consistent delay with regard to the threefold test first it was given, plus the report that it came, the report was itself challenged. Also, it will also lead to inconsistent outcome as the elections of 106 municipalities have already taken place without OBC reservation. Now Supreme Court said that go with the earlier case, what was before the report of this commission itself. But there are already elections that happened of 106 municipalities. So whether they should be dissolved or what should happen, that there is no clarity, there is ambiguity with regard to that also. Despite the above orders, the state commission has taken no step to conduct election. It cited insufficient electronic voting machine, the school education board's examination, and insufficient number of officials to justify non-compliance of the court's order. Also, whether this is impacting the work, obviously the clogging or the blocking of the sewers etc. that you witness, poor conditions of the urban local bodies that you witness, poor implementation of different schemes like Manrega etc. that is witnessed, the reports that come with regard to that, that shows that the work is getting impacted without the elections. Also, the bureaucrats who are handling these bodies, they are mainly, or they are more designed to execute the decision rather than to make the decisions, because these bodies where the elected representatives are there, they understand the needs of that local area because the local population is electing them. So they would be taking better decisions as per the needs of that local population, whereas the bureaucrats are mainly designed to execute whatever the decisions that are taken by these bodies. Also, recently the Chief Minister of Maharashtra announced that all 29 municipal corporations will be headed by the IS officers owing to the allegations and the political interference. But it also suggests that the urban local bodies are difficult to handle, especially when there is no democratic void, because whenever the elections happened, it helps in shaping the views of the population. Also, it is not only about the absence of electoral representative, it is the intentional ignorance or lack of political will that is being witnessed with the decisions or the things that are being done by the government. Also, the 73rd, 74th constitutional amendment that were done to realize the vision of local self-governance, to promote the grassroots democracy, is also in danger. So these 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment act that were done in 1992 after the recommendation of different committees like Balwant Rai Mehta Committee, Ashok Mehta Committee and G.V.K. Rao Committee, as well as L.M. Singhvi Committee. This amendment provided that the constitutional status should be given to the panchayats, and previously the panchayat matters were considered as state subject. And institutionalized three-tier system at village, block and district level. The amendment also stipulated that all the panchayat members to be elected for 5-year terms in the elections, which will be supervised by the State Election Commission. They will have the power to prepare the electoral rolls, plus they will have the power of direction, superintendence and control of the these elections at panchayats and urban local bodies. Also, the reservation for women, SCs and STs not less than 33%. Compulsory election every 5 years. Again, here if elections are not happening, that means it is also not in sync with the constitutional provisions. To levy, collect and appropriate taxes, duties, tolls and fees. Preparation for plan for economic development and the social justice. Also, these committees, for example, in 1957, Balwant Rai Mehta Committee came, which provided for three-tier structure at Gram Panchayat at village level, Panchayat Samiti at block level and Jila Parishad at district level. Then we have the Ashok Mehta Committee that came in 1977 that provided for two-tier system, Mandal Panchayats at village level and Jila Panchayats at district level. They didn't go for the block level. Official representation of political parties at all levels of Panchayat elections. Seat for SCs and STs should be reserved. Constitutional recognitions of Panchayati Raj institutions. And then we have the GVK Rao Committee of 1985 that provided for regular elections to the Panchayati Raj institutions. LM Singhvi Committee of 1986, regular free and fair elections to Panchayati Raj institution. Establishment of Nyay Panchayats, more financial resources to village panchayats. Now these committees are very important not only for your UPSC examination but also for the state public service examinations. Every year there is at least one question that is asked in the state PSC examinations from this particular committee section of Panchayati Raj. Next topic is ethanol blending program, and this is related to your GS paper 3, growth and development, environmental pollution and degradation, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 12. So Union Home Minister as well as Cooperative Minister was addressing a rally in Maharashtra where he said that ethanol blending program was a transformative step for India's sugar cooperatives and especially for the improvement in their financial health as well as for bringing the rural prosperity. So what happens that with the ethanol blending program, where ethanol was demanded by oil marketing companies, and with the better prices at which these products were sold by the farmers, it helped in improving the health of the cooperatives as well as the remuneration of farmers also increased. Also, the minister added that Padma Shri Vittal Rao Vikhe Patil ji, who pioneered the world's first cooperative sugar factory with the visionary step that he took, also it has also provided support to certain other states like Gujarat, Karnataka and Uttar Pradesh who took learnings from the Maharashtra cooperatives. Also, he said that the number of sugar mills had increased by 67, sugar production has risen by 10 lakh tons, distilleries has doubled and ethanol blending program had reached 20%. He also credited the schemes of the National Cooperative Development Corporation under the Ministry of Cooperatives in improvement in this particular sector. And this year 2025 is also categorized as International Year of Cooperatives. So the formula of ethanol is CH5OH. So whenever there is a crop or any of the food product, when it is fermented with the help of microorganisms like yeast, and then the purification of that will happen, and then we will get ethanol, and when it will be blended with fuels like petrol, and then the transportation of that ethanol blended petrol will happen, and then it will be used by me and you from the fuel station in our cars. And the National Biofuel Policy categorized different food products according to the generations. So for example, in the first generation biofuels, it is the soybean, sugarcane, mainly the food sources that were kept. In the second generation, it is the wood, organic waste, agricultural residue that is kept. Then the third generation, CO2 and the light energy. And in the fourth generation, the high for example, genetically modified etc. are the varieties that are kept. And India's already had achieved this 20% ethanol blending program 5 years ahead of the scheduled target. The target was 2030. We have already achieved 2020 in 2025 itself. And consistently, you can see from 2013-14 to 2025, we have consistently improved on the ethanol blending program. Next topic is Unified Payment Interface, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 7, and it is related to your GS paper 3, banking sector and non-banking financial companies. So there was a recent paper that was published in Reserve Bank of India's bulletin, which is talking about the UPI intensity plus the transaction which saw an uptrend in last few years. For example, if you look into the number of cash withdrawals in India as share of GDP, it is consistently declining in last few years. Plus the share in the percentage of PhonePe transaction in total UPI transaction volume over time. It is not only the transactions of PhonePe that is increasing, but the total UPI transaction are also seeing an uptrend. Plus the peer-to-peer transaction or peer-to-merchant transaction. Peer-to-peer means if I want to send money to you, individual transaction, or peer-to-merchant means whenever you are scanning a QR at any grocery store or any shop, that is peer-to-merchant transaction. Both of them saw an uptrend. Plus the average ticket size, that is also increasing. That shows the increased acceptance and use of the UPI. Plus, if you look into the UPI intensity, it is the Telangana having the highest UPI intensity in India. Now, this UPI, that is Unified Payment Interface, is the advanced version of IMPS, that is the Immediate Payment System. So immediate payment service here, at the same time when you are doing the transaction or you are doing the transfer of an amount, at the same time it is reaching to the person's account. For example, at the same time you do a QR based transaction, at the same time you listen to the voice from that sound box that this much amount is received. So the transaction is happening without any delay. Also, it is developed by NPCI and it is regulated by the RBI. NPCI, that is National Payment Corporation of India, is an umbrella organization for operating retail payments and settlement systems in India, and it is the initiative of Reserve Bank of India and Indian Bank Association. There were at least 2-3 questions that were asked from the topic of NPCI itself, and it was created under the provisions of Payment and Settlement Systems Act of 2007 for creating a robust payment and settlement infrastructure in India, whether it is UPI, whether it is Aadhaar enabled payment system, whether it is the RuPay credit card. These are the initiatives of NPCI itself. It is the ATMs which are managed by the NPCI itself. It was launched on April 11, 2016. It is designed to enable peer-to-peer interbank transfers through a single two-click factor authentication process. Also, the difference between NEFT, RTGS and IMPS is that, because this was one of the questions that was asked in 2025. Before looking into this, we have seen the questions related to NPCI, information related to NPCI. So there are 2 questions that are asked about NPCI plus UPI in 2017. Please answer these questions in the comment box. There was also one of the question related to NPCI in 2018. That also shows that UPSC, if they are asking a question related to any of the themes in earlier year, they will be probably repeating that theme in next year also. So it is our responsibility to actually look into all the related aspects of that particular theme which are asked previously, so that we can answer the question which will be asked next year. So please answer these 3 questions in the comment box. And when we talk about NEFT, RTGS and IMPS, so the full form of NEFT is National Electronic Fund Transfer, RTGS is Real Time Gross Settlement, IMPS is Immediate Payment Service. Payment is NEFT and RTGS can be done online and offline both, whereas IMPS can be only done based on online. The minimum transfer limit in NEFT is 1 rupee. And it is the same limit in the IMPS, whereas in the RTGS it is the minimum 2 lakh amount that is needed. Also, maximum transfer limit, there is no limit in NEFT. Again, in RTGS no limit. In IMPS generally it is 5 lakh. Also in UPI generally it is 1 lakh, that is the limit. Plus it also generally differs bank to bank, plus the cause for which it is being done. For some of the causes, for some of the needs, this 1 lakh limit has been actually changed. Also, the service availability for all these systems are 24/7 for 365 days. Time taken for the transfer of funds is immediate, instantly for the RTGS and IMPS, whereas it is 30 minutes to 2 hours. That is the time that is taken for NEFT, because it happens in batches. Also, the transaction charges, the charges vary based on the amount and bank in NEFT, and it is no charge for inward transaction or online processes, and for outward transactions there are certain amount that is taken. And also for IMPS there are charges that differs from bank to bank. And the NEFT and RTGS is managed by RBI, and NPCI manages the IMPS. Based on this, please tell me the answer of this particular question in the comment box. Next topic is the RAT or RAM Air Turbine. This is related to your GS paper 3 infrastructure, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 12. So this operating crew of Air India's Amritsar Birmingham flight reported that the Boeing 787 RAM Air Turbine unexpectedly deployed during the final approach on Saturday, but aircraft landed safely, and the airline said, and this RAT is mainly deployed automatically in the case of the dual engine failure or the total electronic or hydraulic failure, in the case where there is no source of power in the aircraft, and it uses wind speed to generate emergency power. And the Federation of Indian Pilots has called on DGCA to inspect the electrical systems of all the Boeing aircraft. So this is the RAT or the RAM Air Turbine, and this will be moving with the airflow, the air that it will be taking. It will help in movement of that air turbine, and that will power the essential systems in the case when the both engine has failed. It will help in functioning of the avionics, and it will also help in ensuring that some of the critical equipments of that particular aircraft can function. Recently, one of the aircraft that crashed in Gujarat, at the last moment also we saw that RAT was deployed because probably both the engines failed. So it is a compact wind powered turbine that automatically deploys during a major power loss in the flight, and as the plane glides forward, the rat spins like a tiny windmill, powering the flight control computers, and it helps in essential cockpit displays and avionics, and also helps in battery charging and emergency system. It is usually hidden beneath the fuselage. It only deploys mid-flight if both engine generators as well as the APU fall, and it is mainly the backup when everything else is gone in that particular aircraft and there is no power source. This is all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.